Hi, this is Jeff Lesher with What's the Point? And this week's point is going to focus on backseat driving, making assumptions, and failing to ask the next question, all of which contributes to misunderstandings and really a lack of fully realized possibility and potential. But before we get into that, I have a correction because I want to own up to something that I said that was wrong, and that the error of my ways has been vindicated by the behavior of the person about whom I misspoke. So a couple weeks ago, I referenced the golfer Jon Rahm as somebody who had chosen not to get vaccinated and then suffered the consequence of becoming COVID positive, causing him to withdraw from a golf tournament that he was leading going into the final round, for which he would have won $1.7 million if he had hung on. Now, this week, Rahm more than redeemed himself by winning the U.S. Open, his first major championship, and he did so in phenomenally dramatic style. And I would also add that he then very touchingly walked off the course with his young 3.5-month-old son tucked gently against his upper chest. Now, what had happened with Rahm is that he had in fact been vaccinated. He had not waited and followed the protocol accordingly for 2 weeks after the vaccination, and that led to his exposure and, unfortunately, his infection. But Rahm, in commenting, because he was asked a lot about this during the U.S. Open week, said, "It was on me. I did the wrong thing. I paid the price for that. I own that, and now I'm going to get back to doing what I do," which, as already noted, he did in phenomenally successful style. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a great illustration of credibility, of candor, and ultimately of resilience that led to huge success. So big ups to Jon Rahm for that. Very much appreciate it. Now, backseat driving. There was a special section in the Wall Street Journal recently that talked about how people had experienced greater independence as a result of not working directly within the line of sight of their managers, who essentially were described as hovering over their shoulders, backseat driving their performance, which is the only way that a manager, of course, could actually know that work was getting done. You know, because that manager wouldn't have the benefit of, objectives that are measurable, that are checked in on frequently, and ultimately that production and the impact of that production are the gold standard for not only whether or not somebody's doing the job, but how effectively they are. How crazy is that? No wonder 71% of people polled said that if they lose flexibility as a result of post-pandemic work policies imposed by their employers, that will significantly influence their decision whether or not to stay with an organization. So my encouragement is to stop making assumptions about what you think people are doing and what you think they want or will tolerate. Because interestingly, people with kids are more interested in going back to the office. People who are married are more interested in going back to the office than those who are living by themselves by virtue of spouse, partner, children, or all of the above. And we don't necessarily know that. You know, the people below a certain age want this. The people at a certain stage of their career want that. The people in certain roles, we don't know until we ask. I've often counseled clients that if they're describing their insight into a situation with words like probably, maybe, I think, I guess, it makes sense that the answer is you don't know yet, and so you should go find out. It's an easy and actually a wonderfully credibility building thing that you can do. And then when you ask things like, what sort of circumstance would you best work in? I don't really care. What do you value most about your current work setup, where you have the choice of when and for how many hours to come into the office? It's all good. These are questions that people ask when they're not sure how to answer, when maybe for whatever reason they're not comfortable yet answering. Get into it with them. Well, what's one thing that you value? How could I make your work situation even better in terms of accommodating priorities that you have outside of the office. Have these conversations. We're doing a lot of work right now at Shift helping organizations have more effective meetings, especially as they literally welcome people back into the opportunity to meet in person from time to time and use that time most productively, not just meet to meet, not just go back to heads down work, things we've talked about in this space a number of times over the past few weeks. And you can do that same thing just in the one-on-ones that you have with people, individual, focused, dedicated conversations that seek to understand. So if you were backseat driving before, that's a bad approach to effective engagement. So stop doing that, and stop either doing it or not doing it or doing it in the way that you're doing it by getting rid of, shedding assumptions that you're making, which are problematic, not because you're wrong, but because you don't know, and the person about whom you're making these assumptions, they know you don't know. Break that down and you will be that much more effective. This is the moment, folks, that you have been waiting for to become a hero to your people by listening to them and providing them to the greatest degree possible what they value in order to get the best out of them. The time is now. Let's take advantage of it. And you can do it by jumping in the front seat and asking questions and letting them give you the insight that is right here for the taking. You can do it. That's the point.